So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks for joining this instance of the Antrea committee meeting. Today is Tuesday, June the 6th, or Monday, June the 5th, if you are on the west side of the Atlantic. And for today, we have a discussion which will be led by Wenning about a problem that has been recently reported with network policy logging. So basically, if there are a very large number of connections, logging might cause some packet drops. And Wenning has a proposal for tackling this issue, and she would like to share it with us today. Okay, so I'll let Wenning go ahead with with her presentation, and I will shut up now. Wenning, please go ahead.
Thanks, Salvatore. Let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Today I want to propose a solution for to resolve the issue, performance issue introduced by Antrea policy logging purpose. In general, I want to use a separate OpenFlow entry for Antrea policy purpose. The motivation is that recently was observed that some packets could be dropped unexpectedly if massive connections hit a policy within logging enabled. After some triage, we found that the issue happens on a setup only when that OS meter is supported. It is because that we are trying to use the OS meter to perform the rate limit on logging on Antrea policy logging purpose. But since OpenFlow 1.5, meter was switching from a separate instruction to an OpenFlow action, and the OpenFlow spec required that the meter action must be the first action in the flow action site. That means that in the existing code, we are trying to use a single OpenFlow entry for now policy traffic purpose and now policy logging purposes. We have to use the meter as the first action, and it will have rate limit on both the traffic packets and the logging purpose actions. So when the traffic, I mean the business pod traffic is over the meter rate limits, we will see that the packets are dropped by the meter band. Although the Antrea policy maybe is possibly designed with allow actions. So here I paste an example for the Antrea policy with logging configurations on the OpenFlow entries. We would see that in the Antrea egress route table, we have one Antrea policy. If the package has matched conjunction, it will be executed with the actions. Firstly, it needs to process with the meter. I mean that it will be, the packet need to be checked with the meter rate limit and bandwidth. And after the meter, we will use some actions to load the reg marks to the OS registers and then send packet to the controller. This is for the logging purpose. And after logging purpose, we will add the packet into the OS contract. And in the meantime, we may need to load some marks to the city labels so that in the later tables, for example, the metric tables, where we can use the conjunction ID to get some statistics on the now policy rules. And with the meter, we have some states shown in the setup. It shows that the meters have matched totally the packets with this number, and the packet bytes with this number. But after apply the rate limits with the meter band. Sorry? Okay. If no, that's then after the package has over the rate limits, it will be processed with the band 0, and it means that 51,000 packets was processed by the band 0, which means that these packets were dropped by the meter. This is the some observations in the real setup from the customers. And then to process it, I have a general solution is that we need to use a separate open flow entry for Antrea policy logging purpose, in which flow entry we can use meter. If the feature is spotted on the setup, then we can use meter to have some rate limit on the packets to send to Antrea agent purpose. But in this general solution, we have some challenge. Firstly is that we must have 2 copies of the packets before we applying meters. And 1 copy of the packets is supposed to be forwarded in the OS pipeline for the net policy traffic, net policy security purpose. And the second copy is used to be applied with the send to controller action. And the second challenge is that by now we have switched to packaging 2 mechanism for the for the send to controller purpose, and for different send to controller purpose, so we may have different user data. That means that before we apply packet to send to control action, we must ensure that the user data used in the flow action should be matched correctly to the packet with some special requirements. So this is the second challenge. And the third is that since we have 2 copies of the packets, and we have 2 different actions to ensure that the packet can leave the OS pipeline. One is to output one OS port or job, and another is to send packet to the Antrea controller. Then we must handle the conflict with the flow actions when the packet is using with Antrea traffic purpose or is using for the Antrea logging purpose. This is the challenge. So my proposal is focusing on how to resolve this challenge. And after having some analysis on the existing code, I found that there are 4 functions in Antrea to be used for Antrea policy logging purpose. And with a deeper analysis, I found that there are 2 kinds of action set exist in the functions. And for the first kind of action set is that we need to send packet to Antrea agents, and in the meantime, we need to resubmit the packet to a different table in the OS pipeline. And the second action site is that we only need to send the packet to Antrea agents. For this one, this kind, we have 2 functions, and there is some alternatives in the conjunctive action flow. In fact, the existing code in conjunction action flow, we firstly load the packet to the OS contract, and then we expect to send packet to Antrea agents. So as a alternative, if we can ignore the meter in send to controller on the original flow, we can adjust the order of the 2 actions. For example, we can firstly move the packet to OS contract. Because OS contract has make a fork on the packet, and the original packet was dropped in the previous table, then we can leverage it. We can use the fork packets in the OS contract, and we can use the original packet to send it to Antrea agent. So we can just I just move it to the second kind of action site here. So then we come to the detailed designs. Firstly is about how to resolve the 2 copies of the packets. I would propose that we can use a type O group to generate the required copies of packets. Here, I mean that because we see that there are 2 kinds of packet action size. One is have two action. One is to go to a different table, and the second is to go to a Antrea agent. And the second kind of action size is only send the packet to Antrea controller. So here we may have two kinds of type of groups. For the first kind of action sites, we need to have we need to have a single group for per next table. It means that because you know that for group we have one or two buckets, and the buckets contents should be static for each group. That means that anytime when we have a different next table, we should have a different group using the bucket to send it to resubmit the packet to the next table. So here for the first kind of action site, we may have multiple groups, and each group for per next table. And for the second kind of action site, we can only have a single group, and in which group there is only one bucket to send the packet to the flow where we are trying to use the action to send a packet to Antrea agent only, and maybe we also need to apply the meter action on the flow. This is the first part, and then the second challenge is that how shall we process the conflict from the outputs packet to OS open flow part, and send the packet to Antrea agents. My proposal is that I would prefer to install the separate open flow entry which send the packet to Antrea agent to layer 2 forwarding out table, because you know that, so we are always thought that layer 2 forwarding out table is the last table to process packets before the packet leaving OS pipeline. And we always think that send to open flow controller is another kind of behavior for packet to leave the OS pipeline. So I would prefer to install the flow in this table. And the second part is that we may need to introduce a new OS register field, output disposition field, to indicate how the packet leaves OS pipeline. In the existing code, we have OS port found reg mark, in which when we find that a packet has marked with this reg mark, we will output the packet to a OS port. But now we have two kinds of actions to ensure the packets leave OS pipeline. So we will use this mark as one kind of value. For example, I would use number 1 as the mark value for to ensure that the packet is output to an OS port, and I will use the value 2 as the mark to let OS send the packet to open flow controller for internal policy logging purpose. In this way, even if the two copies of packets, one for the internal policy traffic purpose, and the second is for the logging purpose, both the two packets are coming to the last table of OS pipeline. The two tables are marked with different reg mark. We cannot make a confuse on the dispositions. And another key point is that where we mark the send to controller reg mark, it is marked as the inside the open flow group buckets we mentioned in the previous slide. And then is about Then we come to the third part of the proposal. It is to process how to differentiate the packet with the user data in send to controller action. My thought is that so we can introduce a new reg field in the OS registers to mark what it is supposed to use, and the packet operation field is set in the original OpenFlow entries for Antrea network policy purpose. I mean, where we send the packet to the group, and then the mark is consumed in the flow where we send packet to the Antrea agent in the last table of the OS pipeline. In this way, we will not confuse the packets for different user data purpose. Then in general, the final OpenFlow entries for Antrea now policy and the login purpose should be like this. The same way we also use meter in the setup, and we will install OpenFlow groups for the two kinds of action size. For example, the group ID 4 is used is configured with two buckets. One bucket is to send packets to a next table, and the second bucket is to load the OpenFlow, the send to controller reg mark and resubmit the packet to the output table. And we have a second type of group including only one bucket, which is expected to set the send to controller reg mark and resubmit the packet to the last table. Then for Antrea policy, we install OpenFlow in the net policy table, and we also have some conjunction flow configured. After the packets match the conjunction, we will update the conjunction ID, conjunction action flow, and we also set all the reg marks in this flow. But finally, we resubmit the packet to group. Then the packet will be processed in the group, and finally it comes to the output table, and it will match the send to controller mark or match the fport found reg mark, and then continue the actions. This is the details for the proposal. Any questions about it?
Thanks, Wenning. Let's go first with the attendees here and see if there is anyone who has questions regarding the proposed design. Please go ahead. Okay,
I may miss some point. What is the group ID 7 used for? I see there is only one bucket. Why we need a separate?
You mean this one?
Yeah.
For this group is for the purpose that in some Antrea policy with logging, we found that the net policy is only want to send packet to Antrea controller, but for net policy actions, we may want to drop the packet. For example, I listed the two kind of action sites here in this package. For example, there are 4 actions, and the group 7 is for these two actions.
Yeah, I understand this, but why we need a group for this if the only action is sending to controller?
Yeah, actually, this is my open question. I also think about it. I want to ask every guys in here that if this group is necessary, if it is not necessary, I think I can just use the OpenFlow actions instead. For example, we just set the reg marks and the result packet to output table. So I think your idea is to this is better to ignore the group, just use the OpenFlow action directly, right?
Yeah, I don't see why we need a group for this.
I listed here because I mean that's in my proposal I list group is because that I think it will keep the consistent for other groups. I mean that's for login purpose we just use groups instead of the OpenFlow actions directly. So to keep the same style for with other login purpose actions, I use a single group here.
Okay. Personally, I feel it's not necessary, and because when you use group, you normally you either want to select one bucket or you want to apply all the actions, right? But here there is no use case of group, and I assume group will introduce some extra cost.
Yeah, but it's I think I can include it in the change of this meeting.
I have another question.
Yeah.
If the packet, the central controller is for generating some reject packets, or I'm not sure if we have some function that we need the user space controller to decide whether to allow or drop the packets. But if it is that case, then we will have two copies where it causes duplicate packets to be received by the destination.
You mean for reject purpose?
For
to
reject purpose, we don't copy. We don't have a copy to send to the destination directly, right?
Yeah, we do not. No, we don't have a second copy to send to controller. In the existing code, we have I just from my look through in the code, I saw that for reject purpose, the send to controller was merged in with the login purpose. So there should be only one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Thanks.
All right. Do we have any other question? All right, I'll go ahead with a question for those of us which are not as familiar as you with the OpenFlow flows. You mentioned in your presentation that we are making a copy of every packet. Sorry, a copy of the packets that need to go to the Antrea agent. But exactly where is this copy happening?
It is performed by OS when we use the type of group. OS will execute every bucket. So when we use different resubmit actions in the different buckets, OS will generate the equals number of the buckets of packet copies.
I see. So we are not copying every packet in a connection, but just the first packet in the connection. Is that correct? Or are we copying every packet?
Actually, the group actually is used in the OpenFlow entry where you use it to process the first packet in the connection. So
okay.
So the bucket actually is processed firstly after it has matched the OpenFlow entry, which was used to match the packets.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So we don't have to be concerned about memory usage because actually we are, if we have large connections with a large number of packets, we are not copying every packet in that connection, but only the first one, if I understand correctly.
Yes, because you know that internal policy rules are only used to process the first packets. So the group is working as the continual actions for the net policy rule flows. So it is still used on the first package. So for the continual actions, we have other OpenFlow entries to use the contract state with established to ignore the Antrea policy filters.
Okay, thanks. That's good. And we have nothing to worry about additional memory usage rate.
Yeah. Correct.
Or okay, any other question? You know, take example from me. No question is too dumb. Feel free to ask all the questions you might have.
Yeah, I have a quick one. This is Yang. I think this might be all actually a dumb one. So is there any effect to entry network policy rules that doesn't have logging specified? Does it change the current pipeline in any way?
No, it doesn't change the current pipeline. If logging is not enabled on that policy, the OpenFlow entry still uses the previous selections. Only when we find that a logging is enabled on the rule, we will modify the conjunction action flow action to leverage the group instead of the previously single actions.
Right, it makes sense, but I was saying that because in the design that we have a couple of entry network policies, maybe with similar match conditions or something, they share a entry in a conjunction, right? So it means that if one has the login enabled and the other doesn't, now it's considered a different action and will be segregated.
No, when we share the conjunctive match, it is working on the conjunctive match flows, not the conjunction action flows. For each network policy, we have only one conjunction action flow.
Okay, it makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
I got another question. Since we move the send controller to output table, right?
Yeah.
Could that happen that originally the packet is logged after it is determined to be allowed by egress table. However, the packet is somehow dropped by ingress table later. Could that packet still be logged?
I don't think this proposal has changed the previously actions of Antrea policy.
Because previously the send to controller action is enforced in between the pipelines. It is in the ingress table directly, right? But now if it is moved to the last table,
yes,
could that action be skipped because it is already dropped in early tables?
You see, if we have a logging action on the expected drop action in an egress table, it means that when the packet is dropped in the egress table, we need to have a logging action on the packet. Then the group will send the packet to the output table directly to send to Antrea agents. And for the packets still working inside the OS pipeline for traffic purpose, it is dropped. So the packet has no chance going to the ingress table to generate a second copy of the going to send to controller.
No, I mean previously the packet could pass egress check and be logged because the send to controller is enforced as one action of the egress table itself.
Yeah.
After this change, because the logging the center controller action is moved to the last table, then
Yes.
if the packet is dropped by one ingress rule, could that packet still reach the last table and to be logged? For example, I have one egress table to allow traffic and have another ingress table to drop the packets. Where that packet to be locked eventually.
Dropped. I think it should be have two packets. Firstly, the first sent to controller is from the egress because it is allow and logging, right? And then the packet come to the ingress table, and we have another logging requirements. Then the packet was going to another group, OpenFlow group, and we generate a second copy for send to controller.
You mean the two rules will have different groups?
Yes, because you see that for egress logging purpose, although the action is to allow, it means that we expect the packet to resubmit to a table after egress root table, right? For example, egress metric, then the packets, there is one group having two buckets, one is to send to controller and another is to resubmit packet to egress metric table. And then when the packet come to the ingress root table and we have another login purpose, then it goes to ingress group, and the second group has send to controller bucket and drop, maybe for your example, it is to drop. So the group has only one bucket to drop the packet.
I see.
To send to controller, not drop. Yeah.
I see.
I have a question. I wanted to piggyback on Salvatore's question earlier. So you said that the logging will only apply on the first packet of the connection.
Yeah.
But if the network policy rule is a drop rule, and if the traffic is UDP, do you think that there could be a problem if we have like a high throughput for that one UDP flow? Where we're gonna create like a copy of each UDP packet, and so the first copy is gonna be dropped because it's that's what the network policy rule action is, and the second copy will also be dropped, but by the meter, because we're gonna exceed the rate of 100 packets per second pretty fast. But do you think it's an issue if like we have a UDP throughput of like 1 gig or something that we're gonna actually create a copy for each packet in that flow?
I don't think it should introduce many performance issue in the OS, because you see that even if we do not use group for a packet copy, we just use different flow actions in the OS OpenFlow entries. For the OS data path, it is also need to make different copies to execute the actions.
You mean when the packet is recirculated, or?
Yeah. See, if we do not use a type all group, we just use the OpenFlow actions to execute the actions like send to controller and output. I mean the two actions in one single OpenFlow entries. For OS data path, it also means two copies to execute the actions. So I don't think using type all group introduce additional cost on the performance.
Oh, so you're saying that today we're already making multiple copies of the packet when we have different actions that are of the same type or belong to the same action group?
correct.
Can you still hear me? Because all of a sudden I don't hear anymore, or was just Anton, you're satisfied with winning response and that's it?
Yeah, I was just thinking, but yeah, no, I have nothing
okay.
to add. Yeah, nothing to
Okay,
add.
yes.
If Wenning doesn't think it's an issue, I trust her. Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, I'm sorry. I just at some point I stopped hearing anything, and I was not sure if it was like my connection dropped or or if it was actual silence. All right.
That was meditation.
I see.
Meditation. Yeah.
That makes sense. So, do we have any other question on this topic? Seems not. So, when are we going to see this in Antrea 1.13 or the next release, whatever it will be called?
I hope I can finish it in Antrea 1.13.
Perfect. That sounds great. And so, thanks a lot, Wenning. That should solve this problem for good. And we don't have any other scheduled topic in the agenda for today. So if there is anything that you would like to bring up for discussion, please go ahead. I'll wait a few more seconds in case you're thinking about a topic to propose. And this might be all for today then. All right, so I would like to thank everyone for attending this meeting, and in particular, thanking Wenning for today's presentation. And this means that that's all for today, and see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks everyone for joining, and I wish everyone a great evening or a good afternoon.
Thank you. Bye.
Cheers.
Thank you all.
Bye-bye. Bye.